Joel Kirshen, president of the St. Louis chapter of CSI. I'd like to welcome everybody here. It's nice to have everybody here for our opening session for the 2021 educational season here. So we can start to navigate our way through a new normal situation and get back into some in-person activities with a nod that, for those who want to stay remote or timing or other things, now we can do that too. So even if you're out of town, you can still come to a meeting. What I'll do is George has details on a number of the upcoming meetings. We've got some nice sessions planned out for this year. George, thank you. Smile at the camera.
Okay, welcome. God, it's great to be live, isn't it? We have, like everybody, we struggled over the past year with programs. We have been able to do Zoom programs, and we focused last year on how products and how our industry has related to COVID. We did a program on HVAC, we did one on elevator controls. This program, or at least a part of it, was supposed to be done last year. And NEGWR has been great in working with us in changing and modifying and so forth. So there still will be a portion of this program related to touchless and COVID and so forth. But we're looking forward to being able to go out and shop and see door prep. I did want to mention a couple things about programs this year. Programs will be at no charge, either for the Zoom program or for the live program. Our intent is to have a live program every month, as well as a Zoom program, so that our people can feel comfortable. If you feel comfortable coming out, please do so. We'd love to see it. If not, you can follow along on Zoom. So, I hope today's program is everything that we've planned for the last 2 years. We'll keep our fingers crossed so we can pull it off. I'm going to introduce Russ Thompson from NEGWR, and thank you guys so much for making this happen.
It was a pleasure. Thank you, George. Welcome everybody. Welcome everybody in person. Welcome everybody that's attending online. We're happy to have you. Glad we could make it, and it's really nice to be able to do something in person. I have to tell you, I think everybody kind of feels that way. It's just nicer to see faces, not in a little box. Today we're going to cover some different learning objectives that deal with doors and door hardware. I would like to thank Pete Wilhelms, who's one of our vice presidents, and for his astounding cooking ability. And then we're gonna move through our program here. If you have any questions online, please type them in. George will feed those back to us. If you have any questions here in the room, raise your hand. Let us know. And with that, I'd like to introduce Mark Kurtz, who's going to get the program rolling. Mark,
thank you.
I give them your title. Mark's been with us forever.
It changes a lot depending on if I'm in trouble with the owner. So that's the cue. The dogs and ponies will be in shortly. That's part of the 2-year preparation. So I'd like to go through our program pretty quickly. If you have some questions, just raise your hand, but otherwise we'll sort of save the discussion for the end, which would include some questions and maybe a little bit of further discussion. My name is Mark Kurtz. I've been in the business forever, since the early 80s, and I know you're thinking, does NEGWR hire child labor people starting in grade school? But no, they do not. And I've worked on the general material side with Pete and Russ, and I'm also in doors, frames, and hardware. That's been my primary focus for about 20 years or so. We entered the drywall business back in the 60s. We moved to doors, frames, and hardware in the late 80s, and it's an important component of our business. We do tend to make some distinctions in terms of having drywall, steel studs, insulation, plaster is one side of the business, doors, frames, and hardware on the other, largely because it's a contractual sort of business. Doors, frames, and hardware, drywall, and steel is a commodity. If you have any questions about doors, frames, and hardware, I'm your guy today. on an ongoing basis, we have several experts at the company who can help you at any time. This is really nice to be out. Normally, the company doesn't let me speak in front of people. So I'm in this little cubicle next door, and they say, Mark, go to work and come out at the end of the day, and we'll give you some food and you can go home. So this is different for me. But anyway, let's go to the beginning. I want to impart a couple of key things here today. One is when I started in the business, we really didn't have doors. We would just roll boulders in front of the opening. And so I can see several of you are religious people. You understand that concept. But we migrated to actual doors and frames and things like that. And the evolution has been good. So in all seriousness, the things that I like to impart today is that there are sources available for information. The topics that we're going to discuss today are wide ranging, and the industry has so many components. But when I entered the business in the early 80s to now, I can tell you the vast improvement has been made in training and education. And the industry has taken advantage of modern methods, Zoom, online learning, learning and structure, instructor-led learning, etc. And it's so much better. So if you want to continue your education at any point, there are lots of sources. And that's what we use primarily when we're hiring people and training them from scratch. We're going to the industry sources. And who are those? These are the three dominant companies in our industry. ASSA ABLOY, you'll be hearing from Greg in just a second, Allegion, and Dormakaba. These are large multinational companies. They've consolidated mom and pop operations and businesses all across the world. ASSA is Swiss or Swedish, I forget which one it is. They're somewhere over there, right? Sweden. Allegion is a US-based company. Dormakaba is German, I guess, David, is that?
They're German.
German.
Yes.
So they're public companies, they're traded on the stock exchange, et cetera. So they really do things quite well. It's not like it was 30, 40 years ago. So anyway, next slide. And we can provide any of that information to you. So I pulled off ASSA's because they're kind enough to be here today. And just to give you an example of what's available, when you get into their websites, you can set up a training course for yourself, an educational path. And this is the sort of information that's available. Now, in the case of most of these manufacturers, they sell doors, they sell frames, they sell hardware. Wood doors is the one exception, but this is the sort of information that's available, and it's really great. Next slide. More information from ASSA. They have virtual events. They have a calendar where you can go and check it out, sign up. Online courses, regional and factory classes, videos, etc. Note at the bottom, AIA Continuing Ed. They have a great number of approved classes where you can do it by whatever learning method you're most comfortable with. Next slide, please. Again, continuing on this, this is just a snippet of some of the examples of things that are available. Now look at this. This was not available when I entered the industry. You had to go through a different organization, which I'll talk about shortly, or you had to get it, from people at your company. But some of this is just great, and they're attempting to train and make information available across disciplines. Look at some of these on the bottom. Load and egress width. Very important topics if you're in the design business. Next slide, please. Again, final example from ASSA. Here's a description straight from their website. This is a course that's available. This little picture didn't quite come out the way I had hoped, but look at the subject. Understanding electromechanically locked egress codes. A lot of good information out there. They're showing the door and frame and where the power supplies at how things get to the opening. Okay. And there is one more. Boy, here's another one. We're going to talk about this a little bit. Security in the industry balanced to life safety. Here's a class that they've developed talking about how wireless is used in security. The wireless application would apply to both the means of ingress and egress and security. Dormakaba, another company that is a leader in the industry. This is a snip again from their website about what they can do with regards to training. They do a fantastic job. We have our people get on these sites and then we test them periodically for what they're learning. Next slide. Just, and they're giving you the wheel here indicating all the things that are available through Dormakaba Learning. And by the way, I'm going to mention this, Dormakaba has a great center in educational training center in Indianapolis, which you can go visit, set up. It'll show everything you need to know about openings, and it's in real life situations. It's a fantastic facility. Okay. So again, this topic is huge. So I'm going to try to boil it down to just a few things, and then we can cover some specifics. In the world of access control begins with door hardware. These are the steps that we go through, and this tells you what you need to do. Simple as this seems, these are the steps you got to stay on. You hang the door, you secure the door, you control the door, you protect the door. Next slide. What are we doing when we're hanging it? We're hanging it on hinges or pivots. Everybody knows what those are. There are other ways, but that's primarily it. Securing the door. Everybody is familiar with this. Mechanical locks. A cylindrical lock looks like that. Mortise lock looks like that. They're all built into the door. And as you know, it'll have this wonderful education. Every building you go into, you start seeing, is that a cylindrical lock? Electrified hardware. Basic premise of electrified hardware. Fail safe or fail secure. You'll hear those terms used. They apply to your everyday life. Wherever you're at in the building that has electrified hardware, here's your definitions. That's the status of the secure side of the opening. So I'm referring to right here or right back there. Secured side. The electrified hardware allows for free egress from the inside. Okay. And then these two terms, fail safe, fail secure. When the power goes off, everything unlocks and you can get out. Fail secure, power's off, it's locked. This is a very rough equivalent of this, but if we had electrical controls in this building, we would go to fail safe so that all of you could get out of the building. If this was a prison, which some people claim it is sometimes, it would be fail secure so that everybody could stay here and work the whole day. Okay? All right, next slide. Secure the door continued, electric strike, electromechanical lock. That's something we'll talk about a little bit more. Controlled by a card reader, remote release, etc. Electric strike fits in the frame for a single opening like that one. It'll fit in the door. It's a pair of doors. Okay. Electromagnetic lock. So where are you going to see these? You're in a hospital and you're in a corridor and there's probably double acting doors. A lot of times they're open all the time and you'll see magnets up on the wall. That'll be holding those doors in place. It's usually not used for door operation. It's more for security. Mounts on the frame. There's an armature that mounts on the door. You put some power to it and they lock up. Okay. Types of electronic locks. Again, basic categories. You can have a standalone lock that controls that door and you do all your programming there, or you can have it networked. It can run back through the cloud or the internet, whatever, and you operate it that way. Securing the door. Credentials are key. This is a play on the word key. So when access control was developed a million years ago, it wasn't a boulder. It was guys like Hager who developed keys, et cetera, to work in locks. Mr. Schleg himself developed key systems. That key gives you access. Now, today's we think of a card for biometrics, but keys are still the most widely used tool to give you access. Physical key, still used. They aren't going out anytime soon. Sometimes you'll hear this term, patented key management system. That means the access to that key and the key system is restricted in some form or fashion, typically through somebody like a negwork or a locksmith. You get a key at your apartment from the manager, and immediately you walk down to Home Depot and say, I need 20 of these. That's not a patented key system. It just means you can get in and out. So nowadays, cards are also used as keys, think generic key, smart cards, mag cards. Everybody has cards that relate to getting in and out, maybe identification. You go to a hotel now, they're going to get you your identification on your phone, and that's what you're going to use to get in your room. Pretty cool stuff. Biometrics, which of course is coming from the government so they can find out if you've taken your vaccine or not. That'll be your fingerprint. Stick your eyeball up there like they show you in the movies. Maybe sit on it, etc. How do we facilitate that? It's done with readers. A reader facilitates a card or biometrics. Reader is simply accepting whatever that facility is and that connection is. Next one. Exit devices. We've got 2 in this building. This one has the distinction of being used in so many generic words. Correct word is exit device. Is that right, David? Exit device. Also called a crash bar, panic device, can of cardboard, or push bar. It's called an exit device. There's one on that door back there, and there's one up front here. It's always going to be controlled by fact. The exterior side of that is not available unless you have a key. It's locked. Key premise of an exit device, you can always hit it and get out of the building. Shouldn't be any impediments to that. We'll talk about that sort of towards the end. Key component here is you're working in buildings, seeing how buildings are being built, etc. It's required for doors with lock or latch. And educational companies, like a school, etc., anything with an occupancy load that's high, you're going to have exit devices used per code. High hazard. If any of you are doing nuclear testing in your basement, probably should have an exit device on your garage door there. Several types. Touchpad. That door and back is a touchpad. Crossbars. We used to have those in school when I was there. I learned a lot in school. 8th grade was the hardest 3 years of my life. I don't know what your educational experience was like. They used to try to lock the crossbars with chains. You can't do that. Recess means it's simply built into the door. Rods and cables. The industry is evolving in that you used to press on those and there were rods that extended. And once those went down, you were free to leave the building. Now they're trying to put those inside the doors as much as possible. But they found using cables has a little bit less maintenance. So dogging, one more term, and there's tons of terms and jargon in the access control business. Dogging is when today we could have done this on this door, press the exit device into the open position, take a little hex sort of key, keep that thing down so that you can get in and out. Key thing is you can get in and out. Dogging is not allowed on fire doors. Never. Control the door closers. There's one on that door. There's one here. Simply moves it. Common misconception. Door closers do not open doors. The force that you need to open the door is provided by you or any occupant. All they do is close it. There's a zillion variations. There's 4 different types. Surface, which is mounted like that, the one back there on the door. Concealed typically is mounted in the frame. It can be in the door. High security just means that there's other features. And electronic, there are means whereby A door closer might close if there's smoke in the building, that sort of thing. Okay. Automatic operators. So there's three primary types there, like when you go to Schnucks, how are you getting out? That'll be an electromechanical one. There's also hydraulic versions, and there's also pneumatic powered. I don't recall ever seeing a pneumatic powered one, but it is available. Have you seen any pneumatic ones? You probably have. Final category. Important, but believe me, not as important as the first three. How do we protect the door? We can put a plate on it so that when you're kicking it, you're hopefully not damaging the door. You got push plates. You go in and out of a restroom. You don't need a lock. You just need a push plate. Edge guards are used. You're seeing a lot of those in restaurants, hospitals, etc. When the gurneys are going through, trying to protect the door. Stops, obvious there. Gasketing will be used for both prevention of, air infiltration and smoke. Threshold simply secures the bottom so the door fits tight to it. When we get into life safety, I'm going to do a Joe Biden here. So security and life safety, this is a huge topic. And we could spend days talking about it, but you don't want to see me for more than 10 more minutes. It's more complicated depending on the sorts of buildings that you're working in. Schools, institutional environments, very complicated topic. And by our society standards, it's become much more complicated because the way things used to be in the olden days was all we were trying to do is get people out of buildings. Now with shootings and things like that, they're trying to find ways to protect people in the buildings. Security years ago used to be simply that you restricted somebody from going in. Now we've got the complexity of societal issues of shootings, etc. Our industry, door frame and hardware industry, does a lot of work on this. We do a lot of research. David's dad has been a big member of this DHI organization. That's the organization that we rely on for both advocacy, research, control of our destiny. I would advise you to go there. They have 3 topics that you can explore and read all about it. You might be, your school district is talking about how are we going to handle security? How are we going to handle life safety? Great organization to see. Obviously, not because we're in the industry, but because we think it makes the most sense. And we have 100-year history of how to handle buildings. Our premise is always life safety, okay? Yes, you can accommodate security, but life safety is the most important thing. Okay? And nowadays, there are proven solutions. The manufacturers like Greg and his company, they have come up with solutions to this. A solution is not somebody at a school board meeting saying, I'm stopping people from coming in this building. And the next thing you know, you got chains on the door. That's not a proven solution. That's a formula for failure. The interesting thing I always thought about our industry, I'm sure Pete would attest to this, is it's a teamwork business. Everybody works together. It's not like Boeing that's building planes. We all have to collaborate in this business. It's architects, it's engineers, it's contractors, suppliers, and consultants. So in this regard, not only do we supply products, but we do have consulting services available. People like Russ, Laurie. My side, we have spec writers who will help you with your project. Truly, a successful project is built on balance of all of these. Then the poor architects, they have the most layers to contend with. They really have their work cut out for them. But there are experts available. Organizations like Greg, they have spec writers on staff. They'll help. So the key here is these situations have come up all across the country. Don't reinvent the wheel. We've got solutions developed by experts to get people in and out of buildings in a compliant way with all the codes. Okay. Brief discussion, because you can't let this moment pass since it's 20 years. World Trade Center. obviously is a huge topic. The one that in our industry we come back to is it was the largest evacuation of a building in U.S. history, and it was successful. I noticed, Mark, those buildings all fell to the ground. Tens of thousands of people were evacuated by a very well-oiled machine and process system that was in place. From our standpoint, the doors and the hardware worked. That's proven. It's in all the studies. It's in all the interviews. So all the work that the owners of that building and their managers went through to make sure that those openings worked paid off. The fire doors held up until the point they needed to. The locks worked. The panic devices worked. As terrible as that event was, it also proves that if you do things the right way, it will work. School safety, that's the other hot topic. And this is a hot topic all across the country. You're going to get different shades of it depending on what part of the country you live in. Obviously, it's an issue more acute to those who have had bad experiences. We haven't had that yet in St. Louis, thank God. But what's happening there is people concerned about it have been expressing their opinions. They call in various experts and they try to resolve the issue. Dialogue is good. From our standpoint, there are proven solutions to deal with that. And that's what we need to go with. Follow what has worked. It's not to mean we're stuck, but there are solutions to that. And then the final piece, which is sort of getting old now because it was done a long time ago, was ADA. We live with that now. It's worked. There are a lot of compliance actions with ADA that appear to be not obvious to a typical user. The threshold under the door can only be so high so that somebody on a wheelchair can get over. We know that sort of information and work with the project in that regard. So, having said all that, I'm clicking in the time right. 12:30. Any discussion topics? Any questions? Yes, sir.
Question, you mentioned ADA, and you see a lot more like those faux bolts on doors.
Right.
Are those compliant?
Well, personally, I don't think we think it's the greatest product invented. Yes, they are permitted. But to me, there are better solutions to that. Greg can probably address some of that. Touchless is the way to go if you can. You're still sort of navigating that by pulling that thing up. There's different designs. Some you pull under, some you hook. Frankly, that gets into sort of a gray area within our industry.
I would make one comment on that. Those are on the pull side of the door. So once that door opens, the foot pull is not in the opening that you have to pass through. So it doesn't reduce room for, say, a wheelchair or something to get hung up on.
Any questions?
Anything else?
All right. Well, thank you very much. We appreciate being in the industry with you. If you ever have any questions, call Russ. Don't call me. Mr. Nagler doesn't like that. He wants to make sure Russ is working every day.
Thank you very much, Mark. Appreciate that. The earlier you can bring in someone like Negler Materials or like ASA, David, the sooner that, especially on a very large project, the sooner that you've got a hardware door consultant in there, the smoother that project's going to run from start to finish. Because as Mark mentioned, it's teamwork. There's a lot of people involved and there's a lot of steps in the process and no one knows everything. So it just allows, there's just more heads there to kind of throw in an idea or raise a hand and ask a question. So again, for a large project, the sooner you can bring in a consultant, the better. Highly recommended. How COVID sort of changed the world, especially with regard to hardware. Okay, suddenly nobody wants to touch a panic button or an exit device, I should say. Nobody wants to grab a lever. How many times did you open something with your elbow? I mean, we're not shaking hands for a year. So that's something that we'll kind of touch on. Hardware. A lot of these things were in existence, but they're going to be used a lot more going forward, such as a wave to open or something of that nature. With that, I'll turn it over to Greg Patterson with Solid Waste.
All right, thank you guys for your time, I appreciate it. For the ready to, I know your time is valuable. We're excited to be here today. We're gonna talk about hands-free solutions. So we're really focused on hands-free or touchless solutions these days. It's important to highlight where they belong. This group of products can be included in any project you might be working on. There is no building or market that doesn't have specs for touchless solutions. And the best part is they don't stick out. They offer protection to people that are using the building, but they also blend with other designs and elements. What we will cover today is a great example of how aesthetics, safety, functionality can come together to create great products that benefit every market. All the products that you are going to see today are things that you can start including in your projects right now. Changing the way we interact with the door hardware is really important for cutting on down on transmission of germs. Understanding how we clean standard hardware solutions is part of the puzzle. Standard hardware solutions are to be cleaned daily with an alcohol-based or multi-purpose cleaner. Products that would be considered using on your computer screen or keyboards are perfect for hardware as well. While there is a great value in creating completely touchless environments, we also can understand that they may not be realistic. In projects where touchless solutions might not typically be optional, consider pinpointing specific openings that, like entrances or restrooms, that would benefit from being hands-free while the rest of the hardware remains standard. In projects where all the openings can be hands-free, there's a retrofit opportunities we have here to guide you through those hardware selection and processes as well. Arm pulls are going to be the first solution we review today. The levers and pulls that we usually see are touched hundreds of times a day, leaving them consistently exposed to germs. Hands-free door pulls are a great alternative because they accept the arm or wrist to operate the door. These pulls have a decorative look to them and helping to fill a spot of a decorative lever, all while keeping the contact to a minimum. Many of these pulls designs to promote hands-free operation and provide with a sticker that can be installed on the door to provide instructions on how to utilize the pull. The way we interact with doors has changed over almost overnight, and because of that, our touchless solutions will be readily available for all types of applications, including retrofit opportunities. These pulls are great retrofit options because they can be installed over an existing pull. These pulls can also be used in new construction projects. They operate the same as other arm pulls and come in different dimensions and finishes as well. The hands-free push pull is something Corbin Russell and Sargent have been providing in healthcare world for years. Love for this versatility of this solution is great. Asset to hands-free family and can be benefit for offices, schools, assisted living establishments, and hospitals. If you take a look at the images on the side, you can see that there are different types, can be mounted and operated based on how you anticipate the door to be used or oriented. In buildings with high occupancy numbers, making panning devices hands-free is absolutely necessary. On the secure side of the door, using the lever trim in conjunction with a card reader and operator can make the door opening hands-free. By presenting the credential to the card reader, it signals the operator to open the door. Additionally, electric latch retraction is a great feature for making existing spaces hands-free. The feature prevents the latch from securing in place and making it operable through push and pull motions. Implementing access control elements are another great way of cutting down the touchless points in a building. When access control systems like card readers work together with operators, the entire opening is transformed into a hands-free opening. Each authorized user can approach the card reader with their personal credential. Our card readers are designed to detect the credential when it comes in close proximity to the card or the reader itself, so the user is not required to actually touch the card or fob to the reader. This action signals the operator to open. Remote controls are another option to reduce touch points. This solution is great for receptionists, security personnel at the front desk, and may need to be buzzing for visitors. The system at the front desk still has the ability to screen who's coming through the front door, but instead of having visitors and clients touch a button or lever to enter, the remote control can operate the door for them. Norton operators truly evolved over the years. Cutting down touch points has been a main part of those changes. Our operators accomplish this by implementing features like Wi-Fi setups and adjustments to hardware itself no longer needs to be touched. Infinite hold opens are great for ADA opens, but also super helpful for cutting down on the amount of people touching the lever or pull, or super scan, which prevents the door from closing in on someone trying to pass through because of the hold open. The last hands-free solution we have to show is the foot pull. This is another great alternative to standard levers or door pulls, using either the laces or the bottom of your foot while you operate the door without ever having to touch it. The foot pull is designed to promote hands-free operation and also provides with a sticker that can be used on the door to provide instructions on how to utilize the foot pull. Okay. All right, thank you guys.
Thank you very much, Greg.
No problem.
I'm gonna make one little comment here on the change in the design of a lot of the pulls. You can get your arm in there and pull without your hand. Those usually are not in a corridor. They're usually off, in an alcove where you have restrooms. However, I could see with the old design of push pulls, they connected at the top and the bottom. So that's not going to hook a fire hose. You'll notice that door handles always curve back down. They don't hook fire hoses going down the hall. So you're going to want to avoid something like this in a corridor, which you would rarely see it there anyway, I would think. But something to maybe keep in mind. And a lot of that's, what do they call it? The AHJ, authority having jurisdiction. Because I've had somebody request, for instance, fire extinguisher cabinets that have a bubble on the front. You don't need it for code here, but it was from the code from California, so that's what they wanted here. But it's the kit that is simply for, I was asking about it, it's for fire hoses, so they don't get hung up going down the corridor. So we're going to move now to, we'll keep this on pace. We'll get over to the Ready Door shop pretty quick. Get my glasses on so I can. This is just going to introduce the Negware Ready Door system, and Ready Door is a service and a solution provided by Negware. It's where hardware, all the things we've discussed, is pre-installed on pre-finished doors here by us before it goes out to a job site. This would be after, we would do a schedule. There's a schedule for a specific door in front of you, and you can see where this is what the guys in the shop work off of. Some things are field installed, some things are installed in the shop. It's union carpenters that do it. They get packaged. You'll see how this works, and they go out to the job site. And there are a lot of conveniences and advantages to doing it in that fashion. I'll reiterate some of the stuff you see in the video. Not a bad idea here.
Actually, later the Ready Door process allows us to prefabricate these doors and these door assemblies in the right location. So you're going to be mitigating the bending and the stooping and how they're installing, let's say, for example, various door handles and door hardware. So you're going to have this in a controlled environment. So you're going to have the door at the right height, at the right level. So you should have fewer workplace injuries because you've got the workplace and the setup is more consistent for the tradesman that is assembling the door in this workshop environment versus in a work site environment. So we don't have as much time that we would have a delay in the schedule, let's say, for example, because this door hardware is not right, or we don't have a punch list item, so that the clients are going to be more satisfied with the final product because we don't have the delays. And we all know that these doors are being installed usually right towards the tail end of the project, so it could delay a move-in or it could delay occupancy for the owners.
To eliminate the mistakes, the damage, the wrong hardware, or whatever you might say, we thought, how can we better service our customer and put a value out to what we're doing with pre-installed hardware? And that's where we came up with the idea of Ready Door.
closures on the door, the lock sets on the door, screws they need to attach the closer arm, were in that bag on the door.
More and more of the trades are fabricating their materials off-site. And then when they get to the job site, there's less fabrication and more of just of the installation. And that's what we're trying to do with Ready Door.
Those hinges would be rubber banded, they're already attached to the door, it's just rubber banded closed. Thanks, Pete. You saw Steve Opfer in there. He's the guy with the shiny top. Steve started in this yard when he was about 19 years old, 18 years old, moving drywall. He's been here a long time and he's been indoors forever. He knows a lot. Great consultant, and we want to be consultants for you all. So please use us for that. A trend is emerging to pre-install door hardware, but why? Labor is in short supply. I don't know if you've talked to contractors lately, but it's hard to get guys or ladies, gentlemen into the industry. They can't get enough people. Labor is one of the largest costs on a job site. If you line item a job and go through it, labor is a big portion of putting a building together. Delivery schedules are being compressed. I know we see it, and when do you need that? Oh, yesterday was yesterday. And then they're phased as well. So if you've got 500 doors going into a hospital, you don't want us to bring 500 doors and drop them off. You might need 50 and then 50 and 25. So this helps with that process. Think of a carpenter on a job site. So in a normal situation, bring a door, he has to get this door up to the floor. We'll put it here. They have to get it to the floor, to the opening they need it. You've got a box of hinges they have to open, a box with a lock set in it that they have to assemble, a box with a closer in it. They might have electronic panic devices they have to get wired. That closer, you pull that out, it's in pieces. You got a template, piece of paper, you put it up on the frame, you mark the holes. You have to drill those holes, you put it on the door. You have to mark the template on the door, you got to drill that. That's a lot of time. That's one door. And you got a door stop. So we can do all that. Get it there, hang it, put your stop on the door, put your arm on the closer, attach it, go. Again, mentioned this is done by union carpenters. The most important part, one of the most important parts of this is it eliminates field issues. I'll throw out a couple. We have a 48-inch, 4-foot door or opening we order, and we might have made a mistake and ordered a 3-foot panic device, exit device. We catch that, never gets seen in the field. If the door has a gash on it, you'll see that. It doesn't go to the field. It doesn't delay anything. Sometimes hardware comes wrong from the factory. I'll show you one down there when we get there. They opened a box and we just sent this to the job site. They had 2 different handles in it. So that sort of thing transpires. It's all caught by our carpenters and it never gets to the field. It's never seen by your customer. So it just makes everything run smoother. And as they mentioned in the video, doors are one of the last things to be delivered on our project. So your time is really compressed at that point. And to get a pre-finished door or to get some kind of hardware that is non-stock, I know some of that stuff is 12 weeks now. And once you get close to it, you don't have 12 weeks for that. With that, why don't we have a lot of time left. Let's move to the Ready Door shop.
We do have one question online about the arm holes.
Okay.
Why could you not mount them upside down to eliminate some of the hooking problem?
There was another one that they showed, which was the design is for the open part to be on the bottom. But again, it still has that space between the peg and the transverse part that goes back to the door where you're going to hook your arm through. So it's still got a little something hanging out there. Again, it's going to be rare that that's going to be located in a corridor. And again, the authority having jurisdiction is going to make the call for something like that being an issue. Usually in a restaurant alcove, that's not going to be the problem. And that's where you see a lot of these.
From a design point of view, why not mount it upside?
Oh, there's no reason not to. You certainly could. Yes, question.
So what kind of field formation issues do you run into? Like, are you guys taking the responsibility for prepping and setting the door frames? or are you going off a shop drawing from a frame supplier, making sure you're getting your hinges in the right place? And then how do you handle undercuts or finishes with that?
We supply the door frame and hardware. That always comes from the same person, always should anyway, because it's a domino. I mean, when you hit one, it affects all the others. So the hinge, we've already supplied the frames. The frames are in place.
Who's setting those frames? So is your
We do
carpenter
not.
or
Um,
the general?
That would be the subcontractor hired by the general, or in a lot of instances, the general contractor's labor. They set the frames and they hang the doors.
And then who preps the frames, like the closers and stuff?
In the field, we prep the frame before it goes out.
Yeah.
When we do ready door. Ordinarily, we'll send out a frame, it's not prepped, it has reinforcement in it, but they still have to drill.
You're prepping the frames here and you're
Yes.
also doing the door.
That's correct.
Now, how do you deal with undercuts and field measuring with floor finishes and stuff?
I mean, doors have a standard undercut. And there's usually not an issue if there is a transition from, floor to carpet. That is something hopefully that is caught earlier on, Mark.
Yes, correct. If there's something special, we can do it. Otherwise, our standard cut will be 3/4 inch or 5/8, which would accommodate the threshold.
So you haven't run into that's the problem.
No, it would usually go through the shop drawing process too.
Yeah.
To know what floor finish is. That's the other part of trying to make sure that we're involved very early in. As a consultant, all of a sudden, hey, has this type of specialty floor in it that's going to raise it up an inch. We can start making those adoptions real quick.
And thresholds are all designed with, for exterior doors, thresholds are all designed with those common undercuts built in. So.
Then I guess one more question on the client seeing any cost savings, are these going in less expensive?
There should be a cost savings. It's going to cost more on the front end. So that door is going to cost more leaving here because there was labor put onto that door. But the labor of us putting that together versus us shipping pallets of hardware to a job site where guys have to sort through it, unbox it all, take a door, mount the hinges, etc. There should be a cost savings seen there for utilizing our ready door labor versus them doing field labor.
The video who this was about, and that was developed with the contractor, because contractor knew there was savings on that. And that's what they are pushing to their clients, because that's a method of delivery method that they use and are kind of known for at that point. So is it hard to identify specifically? Sometimes takes the progressive contractors, progressive generals to understand it.
If we're putting a job together and that, will you actually quote the hardware and an alternate for the installation, pre-installation? So if I'm working with a contractor, I could see I could always get that labor broken out, and then compare the two.
Yeah, and here's the ad to do ready,
Right.
but then they have to have a subtractor.
And you can ask that after the bids are in.
Yeah.
You could get that quote, even before there's multiple generals, you could get that quote before you award anything.
That's exactly.
And we do it multiple times.
Yeah.
We do as a voluntary alternate.
Right.
And one other thing very quickly, we'll move over because we've hit our time number. Whatever, respectful to everybody's time. The contractor mentioned moving that door. So they're heavy. So if I just have to pick it up to mount it versus I have to pick it up to put hardware on, flip it over, do this, do it. The more times that guy has to move that door, the more chances for a workman's comp. So they just, those things are. Okay, with that, why don't we head out the door here, leave your plates, we'll clean all that up. Yes, the question is for cost estimating, does Negwar do that? We have an entire department of estimators for the door division. That's what, I mean, they spend all day, every day, estimating jobs, throw them out there, and we don't get them all, certainly. So, you get some, you don't get others, but, if it's also just a specific, job or, that you have a question on, we can estimate something specifically for you as well. But yes, that's certainly a process. Service we provide. This is the Negwar Ready Door Shop. So the guys will get pallets of doors like this. This door is pre-finished. The light kit is installed. The preps on this door were done in the factory. I don't see Mark, but there's Mark. These are factory preps, correct? So you've got a mortise lock prep that's already in. And then we have carts with hardware in it. The guys will have a sheet like you saw at your place that has highlighting on each piece of hardware what goes on the door. So then it would move from that position over to this one, correct?
Yeah. Either one.
Either one. So these are two. Here's one where you've got hardware laid out. They've got the schedule. Here they have installed a kick plate, a Roton hinge, a mortise lock, and a closer. Everything that can be installed on this door is installed. The things that can't be installed on this door will be put into a bag with the door number on it, with the screws. For instance, we still have to attach this closer arm to the frame.
On the frame, when you send it out ahead of time, is that piece of closure on that frame, or does it come out in this where you put it all in that assembly together?
It would be.
It'll come here and then they'll have to attach it to the frame.
Okay, the hinge prep, the prep would be done on the frame, the reinforcement, but they'll still have to, will the holes be pre-drilled in it?
For the closure arms,
Yeah.
no. The hinges, yes.
So this is the part, flip it up, this gets screwed into the frame, and then they're ready to go. They have to put a door, the things that can't be installed are noted on the door schedule. So there will be a door stop that goes on the wall. And then,
Thresholds.
yeah, the threshold. So those things would be on a pallet that are sent separately, but they're labeled. Then, yes, question?
Yeah, just curious. Looks like a little spacer down here.
That's from the factory, so when you set the door down, it doesn't chip the veneer.
Okay, so do you,
They
They'll
get
have to
pulled.
take that off after they do that, either as they hang it or after they hang it.
okay, because if it's near the floor, it'd be,
Yeah, they usually pop those right before they hang out.
okay.
But when you're getting it moving, chip that, you don't want to chip into that.
Okay.
And then, mentioned the hardware on the carts, this is how they're pulled.
And this is a pre-stage hardware that we pull for each door. It's got its number on there and it's around a circle. From there, we put it on the door. And once the cart's empty, it's ready to get reloaded for more.
So that's one of the byproducts of this process is, okay, so we're gonna estimate the door. Then we're gonna do the whole schedule and making sure what's gonna be pre-installed, what part has to go to the field. See another set of eyes on it.
Working with the architect.
Then you're gonna pull this out of the warehouse, stage it. Then Mark Ross will get here and they're gonna take it and they're gonna start putting, well, hold on, we got to put that. So those extra eyes and attention to detail saves a undetermined amount of time out in the field. And that's always at the last minute when they want occupancy permit and they can't get it.
Especially on fire.
Mhm. Yeah, and if there's electronic hardware, we test it here before it goes out.
So that way, if it doesn't work out in the field, you know it's not here, it's been pre-tested. So, okay, electrician needs to figure out from the end back where to go.
All right, if you want to move down this direction, once the doors move from there, then they are palletized. You see, we have packing material, we separate the doors. So obviously they don't touch, you don't want them getting scratched, they're factory pre-finished. They'll go to this point, you see that they've marked the hardware, the door number, they've wrapped it to the door, they've wrapped the door arm so it can't come loose. And the hinges are rubber banded so they don't come open. As pops rubber band out and puts it on. Then you've got to the next section. where we band it, protect it with cardboard. They put corner protectors on. We wrap them with a very 3D polyplastic. And then lastly, we'll put them on the shrink wrap machine and wrap them. They get labeled. It has a list of what the door numbers are on that pallet on all sides, so they, you know, depending on where it's set, you can still see it. And that's how it's then put on a Negmore boom truck to the job site and then off of. And if a contractor wanted to pay the extra additional labor, Negmore has the ability to take those doors off of the pallets and go put them in each room at each door where you want. Yes,
Black poly to make sure that there's no UV rays, because sometimes you're sitting here for a while to get out. So that also helps make sure there's no sunburn on it.
If you have a cherry door, make sure that doesn't need sunlight. With that, I mean, we're a little bit over time. I do apologize. We try to respect everybody's time, but we want to thank CSI for this opportunity. If anybody has any questions going forward, please reach out to us. We're happy to give you the right people. In addition to that, you know, this was door focused, but keep in mind that Negmore does fire stop and do thieves. We can, you know, help consult on all of these areas, and we're very happy to do it. Thank you all very much.
Thanks, Russ. Appreciate it.